Y'all, y'all ready for this?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Rewind. It's episode 15 right here on the Pregame Show Network. I'm Tolly Carr in Atlanta. You know, I might get up to about 80 degrees today, but you might kind of turn those numbers backwards in Boulder. Uncle Neely, on a Monday, what are you sitting at right now? About 18, 20 degrees? What you got?
We're 18 degrees, man. We might get up to a nice, warm, fantastic 37 before the day.
Oh, all right. Well, some of that snow will melt. Well, check this out, man. You're coming from Los Angeles, man. We saw that weather on ABC. It was looking great. You land Sunday morning in Boulder. That was quite the transition for you, Mississippi man, wasn't it?
Man, we thought that transition from Arizona State back here was something. That was a 60-degree swing. But this one, about an 80-degree swing with snow on the ground, about 6 inches when we made it back to Boulder.
All right. Look, man, that snow kind of looks like my hair and your beard, man. We're just getting it in today. This is going to be an exciting week. We got the big boys. That's coming for you in another day or so. We're really going to take a deep dive into everything we saw at UCLA. We'll talk about it a little bit here as well. But, man, looking forward to the big boys. Make sure you don't miss that. But this is The Rewind. Uncle Neely, let's go back to preparation. You're coming off of a bye week. It was a taste that everybody wanted to get out of their mouth, that dramatic come from behind victory for Stanford, loss for Colorado. Let's start with Travis Hunter. He did not go home. He did not take a break. He wanted to make amends for a game that wasn't up to his standard. What did Travis do during the break leading up to the game against UCLA?
Well, as you just touched on it, Tolly, it's what he didn't do. He didn't take time off. He went right back to the lab, right back to work, realizing that even though he was out there playing both sides of the ball against Stanford, that his game conditioning was not where it was before the injury. So he wanted to make sure that he was, physically ready for these next competitions because he knows he's going to play multiple formations, multiple sets offensively and defensively. And in that Stanford game, you could see there were some moments where he was fatigued. One thing about this Colorado altitude, it takes some time to get into shape, but it doesn't take any time at all to get out of shape. And so he recognized that and wanted to go back to the grind. And I think you saw, we're going to get into it in the big boys, but I think you saw it paid off at UCLA that he's back in game time conditioning at Travis mode to Travis level.
Man, 2 big interceptions. He baited the quarterback into some throws that he wanted him to make. Your average quarterback, I don't care what level of football you're playing, is usually going to react to what the quarterback does. He made the quarterback react to what he did. You were there with T.O. on the sidelines. What did T.O. say after a couple of those interceptions, Neely?
Was that first one, he was like, man, that is NFL level. He's ready for the league right now. To have the physical ability to cover that distance, make a dive and get the ball. But more importantly, having the cerebral process, the mental thought process to say, hey, let me look like I'm playing off. I know I have a guy behind me if this doesn't work. So it's a total understanding of the formation and what the defensive scheme was right there. So he was able to do just like he did at TCU, leave somebody to go get somebody and come up with the ball. And that's something that you just, like T.O. said and you said, Tolly, you rarely see it on the NFL level, but you're getting to experience it and see it firsthand right here in Boulder, Colorado.
All right, so T.O. is not a coach. He doesn't coach the players up, but he is there offering his support week in and week out. This past week, going into UCLA, Neely, you just walk in, there's Michael Vick hanging out. Ray Lewis was on the phone. That was a cool story. What happened to get Ray Lewis on the phone this past week?
Coach Prime has been talking to one of his linebackers, as well as Andre Hart, the linebackers coach, talking to Juwan Mitchell. We call him Juju. And they were sitting there in the cafeteria having a conversation about preparation, what it takes to be a pro, and what it takes to be a pro bowler, what it takes to be a Hall of Famer. And Coach Prime says, man, you know what? Hold on a second. Pulls out his phone, hits the button, and here's Ray Lewis on FaceTime. And Juju is able to talk to Ray Lewis and get some information on what it takes to be a linebacker at that level and beyond that level. And that just goes to the acumen and reach and gravitational pull of Deion Sanders, that you walk in his office and Michael Vick is hanging out. And then at lunchtime, he's able to call the Hall of Famer Ray Lewis for him to pour into one of his players. I've said all the time that there's only one coach in America that has a gold jacket, and you can see those gold jacket relationships.
All right, look, man, I'm here in the South. It's SEC country. I hear about big-time college football every single day on the radio, on TV. I can't escape it. But Neely, tell America. I mean, that is not normal. Like, just because you go Power 5 doesn't mean you can get a Hall of Famer on the phone FaceTiming you on a random Tuesday. Like, this is still abnormal in a great way.
Yeah, you have to, and I talk to the players about that all the time, that whereas they've gotten used to it, they also recognize this ain't normal. This doesn't happen everywhere you go in life. You don't just walk in a building and see Terrell Owens. You don't just go to practice and see a Michael Irvin. You don't just go to a defensive meeting and see a Warren Sapp hanging out. You don't have a coach across America who can pick up a phone and call a Mike Zimmer, a retired coach, or FaceTime with a Hall of Famer at a particular position in Ray Lewis. This happens all the time here at the University of Colorado, but it's not something that happens frequently anywhere else in America.
Man, I'd be happy just to walk in the store here in Atlanta and run into Stoney Jackson. That's where I'd be doing something.
Stoney! Shout out to Stoney, man.
An 80s favorite, for sure. Neely, let's fast forward to the game itself. Before the game started, Deion Sanders has played everywhere. He's played multiple sports. He's been on multiple stages, but never to the Rose Bowl.
Man, isn't that amazing? You just think about his collegiate career. You think about everywhere he's been in the Super Bowls, and he's never played a game in the Rose Bowl. It's almost like the weather here. He'll tell you with his NFL career, he never played in the snow. He had a cold game here and there, but never had to play a game in the snow. But to see his reaction being there in the Rose Bowl and appreciation for the mystique of it, the majesty, the pageantry of it. He even gathered his coaches, Coach Andre Hart, linebackers, Coach Kevin Mathis, secondary cornerbacks, and also Director of Football Operations, Reginald Calhoun, because they came up through the ranks with Truth Football League there in Dallas and also at Trinity High School in Dallas. And so he gathered them up for a picture because they recognized, just less than 5 years ago, they were coaching what people would consider Pee Wee football in high school football. And now here they are coaching in the Rose Bowl. So it's something they don't take for granted and something that they recognize to capture those moments because it's surreal to be in what is known as the granddaddy of them all.
Wow. Let's go to the game. And again, we're going to have more in-depth analysis on the big boys. But the storyline of this game, it seemed to me, watching it on TV, you were there up close, Colorado was able to move the ball. They were able to put points on the board, but those points were field goals and not touchdowns. And then in the second half, things kind of got away from them, and the protection, which wasn't great, was breaking down even more. What was just your general synopsis of the outcome of the game? And of course, the big storyline, it continues to be all season long, Neely, the offensive line.
Well, before we get to the outcome, I want to go back to what you opened with that beginning, because the arrow was pointing up. It was absolutely pointing up. TCU was that game where we went down the field in the opening drive and got points. And here it happens, right there at UCLA, albeit field goal. This team is known to start slow. So to go down to your opening drive against one of the best defensive lines in the nation, not just defensive line in the Pac-12, one of the best defensive lines in the nation, to drive the ball down the field and get 3 points out of that, you're like, okay, we got some momentum here today. By the time you get to halftime and you've had some takeaways that you weren't able to capitalize on, you're leaving too much meat out there on the bone for a team of this caliber. But you had to be feeling enthusiastic because it was 7-6 at halftime on the road in the Rose Bowl against UCLA and their tough defensive front that's going to put guys in the NFL draft in 2024. So you were optimistic even going into the third quarter. But by the time you get into that third and fourth and you just see that on one hand, the talent level of the offensive line juxtaposed to their defensive line, as well as the depth of the offensive line compared to the depth of their defensive line, it really just became too much pressure, too many quarterback hurries, too many quarterback hits, too many sacks. 7 sacks overall in that game, and about 17 times Shedeur Sanders was knocked on his butt. Still didn't throw an INT, still didn't gripe or complain about the offensive line. He's a dynamic leader, man, but there's clear, as Coach Prime said in the post-game presser, that we got to upgrade his protection.
All right, let's hear from Coach Prime himself. This is what he had to say when asked about the offensive struggles.
Coach, you mentioned the coaching aspect of it as well.
Yes, sir.
Specifically with the offensive line, I mean, what has to improve in that aspect besides from
The line has to improve. It ain't no aspect. The line has to improve.
Coach, we've talked about run-pass balance a lot.
Yeah.
I think it was up until that last drive, you know, maybe 7 carries of running back compared to like 34 passes.
Yeah.
How much of that is a struggle for you guys right now?
Well, it's a struggle to run the ball. It's a struggle to run the ball. And we got to figure that out because now you're one-dimensional, and it's easy to stop a team when they're one-dimensional, and that's who we are at this point in time.
Could follow up on that, being able to commit to that, as you talked about,
Commit to what?
running ball. Could that help?
Yeah, I think we committed to it on the first down, and we was 2nd and 15.
Right.
Those are the type of things you don't want to do and get behind the 8 ball. First downs are so vital. First downs are everything. I mean, first downs are, when we held them statistically on first downs, it was hard for them to move the ball as well. And when we're getting negative yards on first down, that's a tremendous loss. Because now you know you're going to throw the ball on second down, and they're calling their defenses pertaining to that loss.
I just asked that in terms of the big picture, trying to keep Shedeur upright, healthy, and the overall.
The big picture, you go get new linemen. That's the picture, and I'm going to paint it perfectly.
And Neely, I think that sums it up. And you know, I don't want to come up here every week and give the impression that, you know, we're just beating up on these kids who are doing the best that they can. But it is what it is. You are what you put on film, and there needs to be an upgrade there at that position. But I do want to go back to something that you said. If college football is nothing more than an audition for the NFL, for those players who are talented enough to be considered and make that jump, I think Shedeur Sanders is acing the interview when it comes to the part of the interview is, how do you react to pressure and adversity? Because every snap is seemingly adversity. And Neely, I don't think anybody in America would be upset if he was visibly upset. If there was some furniture that got moved in the locker room at halftime or post-game, but that has not been his disposition. I think he has kept the best attitude possible and shown tons of leadership. And you just never know what you're going to get in a person, Neely, until you see them under pressure.
Absolutely right. You know, he has a leadership ability to take on the ownership of responsibility of wins and losses, does not point fingers, even when it is totally justifiable to point fingers. He totally owns it. And when you talk about NFL, man, well, before we go to NFL, let me talk about the Heisman Trophy. The Heisman Trophy is supposed to go to the best player in college football that year. I know I'm here. I know I'm biased. I know I've been around him for 3 seasons now, but there's no doubt in my mind that Shedeur Sanders is the best player in college football. And I will tell you why. You know, the Heisman gets lost in translation because if your team isn't winning, there's no way you're the best player. I disagree with that notion, but let's throw that to the side. Here's a young man who has been sacked more times than anybody, but is still right there at the top in yardage, QB yardage. He is the top in QB yardage. He's right there at the top in touchdowns. He's right there at the top in lack of interceptions. He's right there at the top in completion percentage, all the while having tremendous pressure every snap in his face. And I would say to GMs and NFL scouts, when you're looking for a guy who can prove that he can do it, he's proven that he can do it. So many times, the person with that first round pick and they go after a quarterback, well, you're in the first round with a high draft pick because your team sucks. And if your team sucks, you probably don't have a good offense or a good defense. So they go draft these guys who have it all in college. And, you know, they wonder why you don't perform well on that team. And it's not because you're trying to make NFL adjustments, because you don't have all the pieces. Shedeur Sanders is showing you he can do what the quarterback has to do without having all the pieces. You look at what happened with Troy Aikman in Dallas when he got drafted, man, 1-15 on his butt all the time. And as the triplets began to form, Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin and the team developed, you got 3 Super Bowls in a row. I think you have that kind of talent level in Shedeur Sanders, particularly as it relates to being able to play under pressure and not blame others.
Well, come to Atlanta, because we have quarterbacks that have imaginary concussions, can't hold on to the ball. We got all sorts of things happening down here. So another Sanders in Atlanta. Look, his daddy built the Georgia Dome. He can build the Mercedes Benz because ain't nothing happened in there yet. We're running home about. But that is spot on. But I will say this, Neely. This past Saturday night was the first time that I think all season you could visibly see some of that frustration, even though he fights through it. I mean, good Lord, he had to take an injection in halftime. It was reported, or Coach Sanders said it. Forget reporting. I could see it. Sitting 1,000 miles away, you could just see it.
Yeah, HD TV, man. It is what it is. You know, you talk about just falling on the ground. You know, hey, Tolly, at my age and size, if I fall down, I'm taking a couple of days off. Here's a guy who not only gets knocked down to the ground 17 times, he gets sacked 7 times, and that's with somebody 240, 260, 280 landing on top of him. You damn right it hurts. Yeah, it hurts. You know, you're going to feel it not only then and the next day, but he doesn't get up and kick over the Gatorade or, you know, grab some offensive lineman by the face mask. He just goes right into the next play and sees what the defense is bringing that time. And when the defense gives him that opportunity, he stands in that pocket, will take a hit and deliver a touchdown pass to a Jimmy Horn Jr. or a deep go ball to a Zay Weaver on the other side. So he is who he is, man. He's him. He's Himothy. Shedeur Sanders is legendary and grown. All the accolades that he has earned are merited. It's just a tragedy that in the Heisman situation, it's not so much the individual talent. It really does take the team wins and losses. And because of the 4 wins, 4 losses, he's fallen out of that conversation this year. But I can't wait to see what happens next year in regards to the Heisman and the discussions.
Oh, well, that sounds like Neely leaning on Shedeur coming back. I like that talk, Neely.
I'll do more than lean on it. Shedeur Sanders is coming back.
You heard it here. You heard it here on the Rewind. Uncle Neely never leads you astray. I don't know that, but I feel that. And I feel that because he has always had his father's back. The connection that those two have, and I don't think he would leave him after a year that saw the potential, but not the realization of what this team could be. So I'm fully co-signing that, Neely. Shedeur Sanders back next year.
Absolutely. You nailed all the reasons why, man. It's just that simple. You know, no one wants to have this be the end story of their Power 5 career when there's so much more meat left on the bone, so much more talent to come in. And speaking of that talent, man, you know, this game, once again, Colorado on national TV, don't have to search for it to find it. You know, you got kids out there in high school. You got guys thinking about hitting the portal. They see it. They see where they fit in. They see where they could make this team better. So when Coach Sanders says, hey, man, we are about 7 to 10 players away from being a powerhouse and national championship contender, 7 to 10 of those guys were watching that game and saw how they could help in the trenches on offense, in the trenches on defense, maybe even some of the skill positions. So the future is bright in Colorado. Finishing this season, still want to win these last 4 games, get 2 of these last ones, you go to a bowl game. But there's not a lot of concern around here about what is coming back and what is going to be additions to this team for that 2024 campaign.
And the future is so bright, Neely. You got on those Cartier-esque sunglasses, man. Every time you move, the light just hits it right at it shows off the bling, brother.
Well, you know, people accuse Coach Prime of having his hat on and shades in press conferences, but I can back him up on our light-sensitive eyes. And when you're in the studio with Tolly Carr and he tells you, turn the lights on, I would be sitting here squinting. You could blindfold me with dental floss if I didn't have these glasses on.
He ain't twerking. He's working, baby. He is working. Neely, you are always working the sidelines, man. You got a pretty solid interview. You got a couple of interviews out in the stars there in UCLA, and one name that will forever be linked to the culture.
You have you've been with this thing before it was a thing.
I guess so. I tell you what, I'm proud, I'm ecstatic, and at the same time, I'm inspired watching what Coach Prime is doing and the impact he's had, not just in Colorado, but worldwide. It truly is inspirational.
He's had an impact outside of sports, you know, outside of just football, business, economics, people's spirit. What do you see rippling across the nation when you see Coach Prime's work?
I see the impact of not just young football players, but 58-year-old has-beens. He's impacting society like never before. and it just really shows you what could occur when you surrender it all, give it to God, and have one mission.
When I see him, I often quote you, Mama.
There goes that man.
Appreciate you, brother.
Mama, there goes that man. Neely with Mark Jackson. Neely, what is the secret sauce, man? Do you just walk up with the mic? Do you kind of butter them up? Like, how do you always bag the interview, man?
Hey, that's how it starts. Everything is done with an approach. You got to walk up to them. And typically there's an introduction, letting them know I'm part of Coach Prime's media team with Thee Pregame Show. But with this interview with Mark Jackson, who I love when he would do that shoulder after making that three, whether he was a New York Knick or a Pacer. By the time I was 5 words into my sales pitch for the interview, he said, man, I know who you are. Watch your channel all the time. You do great work. Loving what I'm seeing out there, man.
Yes.
And so to get that, not only from a guy who's played and coached and had a hell of a broadcasting career and still should be coaching right now, Mark Jackson was all over the pregame show, man. And I told him I was flattered and honored that he knew who I was and what the platform was.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the voices of the culture when it comes to hoops, not only as a player, but as a broadcaster as well. And we do need to see him back coaching. He has so much to offer. I think it's a shame that, we have cycled through some coaches, Neely.
Yeah. And that is one of the things that, Coach Prime being here in Colorado brings a spotlight on, is that what happens when minority candidates are given an opportunity. They have the resumes, they have the credentials, they have the experience. All they need is the opportunity. And so many times in these coaching spaces, whether it is, provosts or chancellors or boosters or billionaire owners, they don't necessarily look like some of the coaches who come from a better pool as far as experience goes. And so it's an uphill battle, man. But, hats off to Mark Jackson and what he has meant to the sports world. And I tell you what he's meant to Coach Prime. Don't forget when it was rumored and announced that Coach Prime was going to Jackson State, Mark Jackson popped up on his Instagram in a JSU jersey. And then here you are, 7 games in the books playing your 8th game of the season, and he's on the sideline in UCLA. Like I said to him, he's been with this thing before this thing was a thing, man. He ain't playing.
Right. He's not new to this. He is true to this. Mama, there goes that man. Love Mark Jackson.
Man down, man down.
That is so great. I never get tired of hearing that. Look, you are all about opportunities here at the Pregame Show Network. We got a new talent that's not new to us, but new to the audience. Simone Stanley, one of my great friends at HBCU Game Day, is doing some content here on the network. Let people know here on the Rewind what they can expect from Simone.
Man, Simone is phenomenal talent, man. Met her through Tolly Carr, HBCU Game Day. She's going to be producing some segments called What They Saying, where you look at Twitter universe and social media platforms and what is the buzz going on with Colorado and Coach Prime, but also college football and sports in general. She's dropped a couple of those already, and the comments and support of it have been phenomenal. But that's not all, man. She's going to be bringing some recruit segments and some other interest segments. We hear about expanding, man. The pregame show, Neely's handling that, and he's joined at the hip with Coach Prime and this Colorado Buffalo program. You're going to get that content. Now you have the Rewind, where we take a look back at what's taking place, sometimes dropping 2 of those a week. You got the Big Boys with Coach Carl Reed, a deep dive analysis of college football. Now you got Simone Stanley coming on board. And we ain't stopping there, Tolly. We're going to add more and more content, because right now when you're watching this, we got 100,000 subscribers.
Man, we need the other 30 people. What are you guys waiting on? Come on. Let's get it to 100K. All right, here at the HBC Game Day studio where we record the Rewind. Sometimes I get rushed because we got a lot of productions on Monday. So a quick goodbye here. Another set is looking to roll in. More productions happening on a Monday. Don't forget, though, the Big Boys on the way. Later this week, we're going to have a lot of fun with Coach Carl Reed from 24/7 Sports. For Uncle Neely, I'm Tolly Carr. Thanks for watching The Rewind. We'll see you later.